After last season, it seems like the Arizona Cardinals under Cliff Kingsbury and with Kyler Murray as the starting quarterback for this team, it seems like they're starting to hit their ascension into becoming not only one of the better teams in the NFC and the NFC West, but starting to become one of the better young teams in the NFL. Guys on the offense that are stars like Murray, like DeAndre Hopkins, like Fitzgerald when he was there last year. And, there is, it's 50-50 whether or not he comes back this year or not. But, everywhere around this team, it's not just the offense that did really well last year. On the defense, they had guys like Hassan Reddick do really well. Buda Baker in the back end was a really good player. They had vets that were, really good on the team like Patrick Peterson. And this team just all in all was an above average team, it seemed like, wherever you looked around what they were doing. And one of the interesting things to me about especially the offensive side of the ball for this team is one of the main strengths of their offense is Kyler Murray just as a weapon in himself. And what he's able to do in the running game, I don't necessarily think that even though the Arizona Cardinals were 7th in rushing yards last year, I don't think anyone around the league would really look at the Arizona Cardinals with the guys that they had running the ball last year, like Kenyon Drake and other guys like Chase Edmonds. I don't know if a lot of people really think that they had a great running game, but the fact that Kyler Murray is so strong in the running game, throw on the fact that he can be an elite passer as well, and they really have an ability to be strong in every single offensive category. And everything that the Arizona Cardinals were able to be successful at offensively is only coming in the second year of this regime with Cliff Kingsbury as the head coach and Kyler Murray as the quarterback. It's coming at the time when DeAndre Hopkins was in his first year with the Cardinals. It's coming at a time where the offensive line is still kind of getting patched together. And just in all, this team still, I don't think, has hit their stride. But with that being said, they still did a lot of things well, offensively and defensively. Like I said, they were 7th in rushing yards, and everything else offensively, they were at least average in. They were 17th in passing yards, 17th in turnovers, 13th in points, and 12th in sacks allowed. Now, I do want to hammer home the point that the turnover number is a little bit alarming because really the only guy on the team that is turning over the ball offensively is Kyler Murray. Last year, the Arizona Cardinals ended up having 21 turnovers on the offensive side of the ball, and Kyler Murray accounted for 16 of those. Now, another thing is, we really give Daniel Jones a hard time for being a turnover-prone quarterback. We have given guys like Baker Mayfield a really tough time when it comes to turnovers. But Kyler Murray had as many turnovers last year as Daniel Jones. Kyler Murray had more turnovers last year than Baker Mayfield. So that is a little bit of an issue when you talk about whether or not this team can actually go into the next step of its development and become a great team. If Kyler Murray still has those turnover issues, it's going to be hard for Arizona to get out of its own way. Now, the defense wasn't up to the same kind of level that the offense was last year. However, with some of the players that they had missing, like Chandler Jones last year, it was going to be hard going into the year to expect them to just be playing at an incredible level all season. However, with that being said, they had other guys who we didn't really know of before the season step up and become key players for the team. You saw Buda Baker become one of the best safeties in the NFL. You saw Hassan Reddick become one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. I think he was 3rd or 4th in sacks. The Cardinals last year defensively had some major key guys step up. And, it led to them being 10th in passing, 22nd in rushing, defense, of course, 18th in takeaways, 12th in points allowed, and 4th in sacks. Now, I do think that it's going to be hard for the defense to even be able to live up to what they did last year. And that does sound weird because defensively they weren't incredible. But they are going to be losing Hassan Reddick, Devondre Campbell, Patrick Peterson, Kevin Peterson, defensive end Angelo Blackson. They lost 5 key players on the defensive side of the ball that really were integral pieces in terms of keeping them afloat on the defensive side of the ball. But if they're able to rely on Buda Baker going into this year, going to step up and be even better than he was last year, then maybe that will make up for some of the guys missing. They did draft Zaven Collins in the first round, who I'll talk about later, but defensively, they weren't incredible, and they did end up losing a little bit more than they actually gained. So don't be surprised if defensively they don't look great. And some key losses on the offensive side of the ball. Running back Kenyon Drake went to the Raiders. Guard J.R. Sweezy, I believe, went somewhere else, is the moral of the story. I don't remember exactly where he went, but he's gone from the team. Right tackle Marcus Gilbert ended up retiring this offseason, so there were some major moves along this offense that also left. Now let's talk about what actually came back to this team. And offensively, they did gain a lot. They drafted Rondale Moore out of Purdue in the second round. They ended up signing A.J. Green from Cincinnati. They did sign James Conner from Pittsburgh, Ito Smith from Atlanta. Him and James Conner are two very decent running backs in their own right and are probably going to contribute to getting that running total back up. And they did sign guard Brian Winters from Buffalo. Like I said, they did draft Zaven Collins in the first round out of Tulsa. They drafted safety Marco Wilson in the fourth round out of Florida, who I don't know if exactly he's going to be a day one starter or if he's going to start at all during this season, but I'm sure that he will be a player later on down the road who they will rely on to be a decent player for the team. The big move that everyone knows of is they signed defensive end J.J. Watt, who even though he is out of his prime, he can still give you good, if he's playing 60 to 75% of the snaps on any given game, he's going to give you everything he's got, and that's really all you can ask for him. They signed cornerback Malcolm Butler and safety Sean Williams as well. Now, the Zaven Collins thing to me is a little bit strange because if you guys remember, they did draft Isaiah Simmons last year out of Clemson, and I have been, all along, my thought process on Isaiah Simmons is that he needs to play linebacker. Linebacker is the only place that he could really play that would be able to put him in the middle of the field almost every single play and be able to make as many plays as possible. With the drafting of Zaven Collins, I don't necessarily know if Arizona still believes in Isaiah Simmons. Not only did he not play a lot last year, but they ended up drafting Zaven Collins as well. I'd love for him to be able to step up and be a good player for this team in Isaiah Simmons because, you look at him, he's 6'4", he's if you look at his draft class, he's taller than any defensive guy that was drafted that year, I believe. He's faster than any offensive player that was drafted that year, except for maybe one or two guys. And he's just the versatility of him. There's nobody really like him. There's no player in the NFL that you can say he could play either linebacker or safety. There's really no true guy like that. He's like a new Cam Chancellor. So with all of that being said, Arizona Cardinals went 8-8 last year. They were third in the NFC West, and they missed the playoffs. Even though that seems maybe like a disappointment last year, I think coming off a year where they went 6-11-1, or 6-11-1, that's 18 games. They went 5-10-1, I believe, in the first year. So a 3-win improvement is an incredible deal for them. I would say, though, that this is the year that they're going to make the playoffs, at least as a wild card team. In a 17-game season, I could see them winning anywhere from 11 to 13 games as their ceiling. Just because if this team does hit their stride this year, it's going to be a really good year for them. Offensively, it's going to be really good, and if they do have some defensive mishaps, I think their offense can pick up the slack for them. Now, in terms of a floor for this team, I think between 8 and 10 wins is kind of where this team is going to bottom out at, maybe even 7, because this defense is going to look somewhat suspect the first half of the season. Like I said, there are some stars on the team. You do have 2 incredible pass rushers between Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt. You have an incredible back-end player in Budda Baker. You have some other good young guys that if they end up stepping up, they could play decent roles for the team, like Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. But at cornerback, they're really thin. At their other safety slot, they're pretty thin. It's just a not very deep defense, and they already were a little bit suspect last year. And if they're even worse or just about the same kind of averageness as they were last year, then like I said, I could see this team bottoming out at about 7 wins on the season. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback at this point is much appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.